What up, guys? Ty and Zach are back with another video here. We're week 7 already. It seems like we just started this thing, but college football has been pretty interesting through 6 weeks. Our picks kind of say the same here. Ty, rough week last week. How do you feel about that?
Oh, it was brutal, honestly. I thought I was going to be off to a good start with Texas pulling an upset, and then they choke away the game, and that just kind of started the whole downfall. You had Alabama losing somehow, Virginia Tech losing in the last second. It was just a nightmare of a day.
From my side, it was one of us had to be the person that looked kind of dumb here this week, just because lots of different picks. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and obviously I beat you by 5. So all the games that were different, I won on, and I guess that's what made me 12-4 this week. And I'm only 2 behind, so I'm creeping up there, heading into week 7. But before we get started on game previews, these are all the teams that are on a bye this week. We'll start with Michigan. How did you feel about the close win last week?
Let's just say it's a win. I mean, it was a tough environment, night game on the road, so I wouldn't take too much out of it, but defense has to play better going forward.
For Ohio State, this team, everyone kind of wrote them off early for at least the college football playoff, just because, they lost to Oregon at home. That's a bad loss. But now Oregon has a loss, and they're right in the same boat as Ohio State. But Ohio State plays a lot better competition, and there still will be a Big Ten team for sure representing the college football playoff, but it still quite possibly could be Ohio State.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess I'll go on to Penn State. I think they'll be fine. They were without Sean Clifford, and that's when the game kind of turned. If they can get him back for their big games, they'll be fine. If they don't, they're in trouble because their backup was not very good. So as long as they get him back, they have a chance.
For Notre Dame here, they just somehow find a way to win these games. Their only loss to Cincinnati is the way that they just couldn't put it together at the end like they normally do. Lots of close victories, too close to count if you're a Notre Dame fan. At least you'll be watching a good game, though, for the whole 60 minutes. But this team's pretty much already eliminated from the college football playoff unless literally every team has a loss. And that's saying if Notre Dame can win out as well. But I would say for Brian Kelly, just another solid year and a coach that needs more recognition on what he does.
Yep. I guess out of the other 3 teams, Wake Forest, even if they win out, they might still need some help because Cincinnati might still have a better resume than them, even as a group of 5 team. So that could be interesting. And then obviously SMU and Coastal have basically no chance at the playoff, but good for them for being undefeated.
Which is why they should change the college football playoff to 12 teams. But
yep,
you would think it would be a lot easier than how they decide, but I guess not. But for our first game, we will go to Friday night in the Big Dome in Syracuse. And, this is kind of an interesting game because Clemson on a Friday night, you think, you have a top 4 team in the country playing, but they're not even ranked at this point in the year. I'm going with Clemson here just because experience, it doesn't seem like they would drop to 500 this late in the season. How are you feeling about that?
I just think at some point Clemson has to get it together a little bit. And, these ACC teams, they still are going to get up for Clemson this year, even though it's a down year for them. But Syracuse isn't very strong this year, so Clemson should shut them down on defense.
Michigan State cracking the top 10. It's interesting because this year, no one really thought this team really had, I guess, this much potential, but Mel Tucker has put together a team. He's shown why he was the right hire already. Even if he has, just a few mediocre years after this year, just shows his potential of being a really good coach in the Big Ten. But I think it's kind of an obvious pick here for Michigan State, but it could be a trap game. just saying because the next game they will play will be against Michigan, and obviously that's a huge rivalry, and players start to look forward. Like I can't wait for that game. Both teams possibly 7-0, battle in East Lansing. But right now, I don't think they're going to overlook it for this week, and Michigan State will take this one.
Yeah, it definitely could be a trap game, obviously, with their Super Bowl coming up next week, essentially. But I just don't see Indiana competing in this game. They've been really disappointing this year, and I was expecting them to be pretty decent. But Michigan State should win fairly easily and be 7-0 going into the Michigan game.
An interesting matchup here. Let's say if Texas wins last week, you got a battle of potentially two top 15 teams here, still vying for their shot at the playoff. Oklahoma State in the Big 12, this is a game that you have to win considering you're still undefeated, go on the road at Texas. And I think they're going to get it done, move to 6-0. And I think the Oklahoma State game is going to be one of the best games of the year just because of high flying offenses. And I just really kind of want to see an undefeated two teams play each other. So I'm going with Oklahoma State here.
Yeah, we're going to learn a lot about Texas in this game coming off a devastating loss to Oklahoma where they were up by 21 points and choked it away at the end. But I think they're going to show up in this game, come out angry, and Oklahoma State is no pushover. They are really underrated this year. They play defense, which is unheard of in that conference, but I think Texas will bounce back and they'll get a big win at home.
Another game, pretty interesting game, you could say, is Arkansas and Auburn. If you were to tell me at the beginning of the year that this would be the records and who's ranked, I would say there's no way because no one saw Arkansas coming. But Auburn, they're always pretty relevant, ranked at least around the top 25 every year. But I think it's just hard to overlook Arkansas this year as, they may have got blown out by Georgia, but they bounced back last week against Ole Miss and lost on a 2-point conversion. They could be 5-0 in the top 10 right now, but at home, I think it's just tough to not pick Arkansas just because, they've had some tough losses over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I could have went with Auburn if they played a little better last week, but they were at home against Georgia and just were never even competitive in that game. So, again, I got to go against Bo Nix. I hate always bringing him up, but I just can't trust him on the road against Arkansas. So, I think Arkansas gets back on track here and beats Auburn.
Uh-oh, we're getting a phone call. Decline. But for our next game, I am going to go with the upset of the century here. I'm taking Kentucky. No one even thinks Kentucky has a football team because everyone always thinks of their basketball and Kentucky basketball this, Kentucky basketball that. But I think this Kentucky team has something special. And, this is the win they need to not just for this year and program, but this is a program defining win. This win could vault them into top 5 potential college football talks as well if they can pull this one out on the road. But I don't know. I've been kind of high on Kentucky just coming out of nowhere this year, especially an SEC team. And I have been wrong and passed when I picked against Georgia and it didn't turn out well for me, but we're going to roll with it again because it's got to hit sometime.
And Georgia has had a few of these games where they just unexplicably lose to teams like this where they're a huge favorite, but I just don't see anyone really scoring a lot of points on that defense, and they looked really good last week against Auburn. Kentucky did surprise me. I thought their Florida win was kind of a fluke, and then they crushed LSU last week. But I just think Georgia's in another league from Kentucky and basically everybody in the country.
So 3:30, I think you got a potential trap game here, so you might want to tune in for this one. Iowa, big win last week, moving up to number 2 in the nation. Who saw that coming? And Purdue is a sleeper team in the Big Ten because it seems like every year they play games down to the wire, no matter against the best teams, worst teams. And I mean, it's tough to pick against Iowa right now just because they got everything going for them. but something to look at. Just keep in mind that this Purdue team will show fight until the fourth quarter and could pull off the upset, but you just can't bet against Iowa right now.
Yeah, I think this will just be a grinded out game for Iowa. I think they'll get back to running the ball, which is what they really like to do, and forcing a few turnovers on defense. So that 11.5 line probably seems low, but Iowa doesn't really blow anybody out. That's just not really how they function on offense. They kind of like to use ball control and run the clock. So I think they'll win like 27-10, something like that, and just cruise to another win.
Another interesting game at 3:30. You got two 5-1 teams here. No one really saw this Baylor team already getting back to their winning ways like they were about 5 years ago. And BYU took a tough loss. So they're moving down a little bit in the rankings, but it's just tough for BYU because it's an independent and they don't really get to, I guess, have a set schedule on who they'll play. But I think it's just tough to pick against Baylor at home because they kind of came out of nowhere. And it'll be interesting to see how BYU responds, though.
Yeah, bad loss for BYU last week to Boise State at home. So I think Baylor should win, probably cover this week. But I got to give some props to BYU being an independent. Like you said, they at least try to schedule these really good teams. And this year it just hasn't really worked out for them. A lot of those teams on their schedule have been disappointing. So kind of unfortunate for them, but I think they'll lose this one on the road and fall to 5-2. Baylor's a team to watch out for in the Big 12.
All right, your Broncos here. How you gonna go about this one for after last week's performance?
Well, last week's performance was absolutely awful. If we're being honest, they scored 3 points in the second half. Caleb Ellaby turned it over a few times. They fumbled, and it was just a complete dumpster fire in the fourth quarter. And they really showed the issues they had last year, and somehow fired nobody after all those issues. So obviously they were going to come back up. But this is a big game. Kent State's in first place in the MAC East. So if you win this game, Western can get right back on track. And I think they will. Maybe that's some false hope, but I'm going with the Broncos in a close one here.
If this game was at Kent State, I wouldn't have too much faith here. But they're giving Kent State 6.5 here, so they must be thinking high of Western, being the better team right now, and it'll be interesting to see how they respond. Another interesting game. You got a potential first round pick at quarterback for Fresno State, and this Wyoming team. Josh Allen's old school kind of came out of nowhere again, just resurgence. But Fresno State they played lots of close games this year. Lost Oregon, almost won that game, and I just think Fresno State will win this one. And if I was betting, I would definitely take Fresno State and the spread.
Yeah, I probably would too. I think Wyoming is just another one of those college football teams that falls victim to starting 4-0 with an easy schedule and just thinking they have a really good thing going. And I think Fresno State's going to show them that in this game. And obviously their quarterback play is significantly better than Wyoming this year. So they should be able to outscore them.
At 7, I never thought I would say it, but Alabama's going to have to bounce back here. A shocking loss last week to Texas A&M, who pretty much fell off the face of the earth after 5 weeks. And now they got to go into Mississippi State. They've showed that they can hang with some top dogs this year as well, but I don't think Nick Saban's too happy right now in Alabama. So, he's pushing his players as hard as he's ever had, I would say, in a long time. So I'm going to Alabama here, and I think this is going to be a huge blowout.
Yeah, I could definitely see them just taking Mississippi State to the woodshed here, basically releasing all their frustration on them. But that was definitely shocking to see. I haven't seen their defense get shredded like that outside of Joe Burrow, but obviously he threw 1,000 touchdowns that year. But other than that game, I've never seen that type of performance from Alabama. So it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back. But I think that offense is going to have a field day on Mississippi State. Although worth noting, Mississippi State beat A&M. So
It's 7:30. We'll talk about pretty much just Oklahoma here. Spencer Rattler pretty much sucked last week. And what was the backup?
Caleb Williams.
Yeah, him. So he came in, pretty much lit up Texas defense. Dude, I think they scored at least a field goal or better on every possession they had in the second half, it felt like. And it's going to be interesting to see who Lincoln Riley's going to start this week. I mean, if it's me, you got to go with a hot hand here, and you can't start Rattler. But, I think both will play, and I think moving forward, it's just going to be whoever's got the hot hand in that game, and they'll stick with that.
Yeah, I think you got to go with Williams in this one if you're Oklahoma. Spencer Rattler didn't really have that downfield threat that Williams had, and Oklahoma's O-line is not good this year, so you need a guy who can handle some pressure and still throw the ball deep. So I think that's who you got to go with, and TCU's been very inconsistent this year, and I think Oklahoma should beat them easily. I think they turned a corner last week in that huge comeback win, so I think they'll start to look more like your typical Oklahoma.
Ole Miss, Tennessee. One of our few times we're going to disagree this week is I'm going with Ole Miss here. Not Bryce Young? Is it Bryce Young?
Matt Corral.
Bryce Young's the Alabama. So, potential Heisman. And I think he's really going to have to play up to that standard right now in this week because it's a tough game going into Knoxville. But I think Ole Miss will take it. And if I was also betting, I would take Ole Miss by more and the spread just because, it's uncommon the SEC games are 1 or 2 point decided.
Yeah, so this reminds me a lot of that Michigan-Nebraska game last week. You got Tennessee, who's playing much better than how they started, a night game on the road. But the only difference is Michigan, I think, is better than Ole Miss, and I think Tennessee is better than Nebraska. So I'm going Tennessee here, and I don't want to hate on the guy, but it's just like Michigan last year. They benched Joe Milton, and the complete mojo of the team changes. Their new quarterback, Hendon Hooker, has just been lighting it up. And Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, I think, is starting to forget that he's in year 2. So it takes time sometimes to build a top 10 program, and I think they're going to figure that out this week and get upset on the road.
And for our last game of the week, you got NC State and Boston College, battle of the 4-1s. This Wolfpack team, they've shown that they can hang this year. Same with Boston College, just with one ugly loss. But I'm gonna go with NC State here on the road, and this is a big game to decide, who's at the top of the ACC. With Clemson falling twice, or Clemson falling in the ACC, you only can have one loss to have your shot pretty much to go to that title game.
Yeah, NC State's definitely still riding high from that upset of Clemson, and arguably the best team in the ACC right here, NC State, because it's a very weak conference. But I just think going on the road, and they are one of those teams in the ACC that hasn't lost recently, and those teams tend to lose this year. So I think on the road at night, nobody is immune to losing those games in the ACC. And Boston College is pretty solid this year, so I think they'll get it done.
But that'll be it for our video this week. Make sure you tune in next week to watch our other video as some teams from the bye will be returning. And it's interesting to see how this season plays out as we're almost halfway through it. But until next week, thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.